The wind howled through the empty streets, carrying with it the scent of dust and decay. Broken buildings lined the horizon like silent giants, and the sky was a dull gray, heavy with ash. In the middle of the ruined city, a lone figure knelt, her clothes torn, her face wet with tears. Her eyes were wide and desperate as she looked up at the shadow standing before her. I'll bear your offspring, she sobbed, her voice trembling. Just, please, don't throw me out. The figure in front of her did not move. He was tall, with broad shoulders that made him look like he could crush her with a single step. His face was partly hidden by a hood, but what little could be seen told a story of pain and caution. His eyes, sharp and calculating, watched her carefully. The woman's sobs grew louder. I don't care about the risks. I can do it. Just let me stay, please. For a long moment, the wind seemed to stop, carrying only the sound of her desperate plea. Then the man spoke, his voice low and calm, almost too calm for the chaos around them. Stay with me, he said. The words were simple, but they carried weight. He extended his hand toward her, but she did not move immediately. Her mind raced. Could she trust him? Could she survive another betrayal? Why? Why should I? She whispered, her voice breaking. Everyone leaves me. Everyone abandons me. How do I know you're different? He tilted his head slightly, studying her, and the faintest hint of a smile touched his lips. Because if I wanted you gone, you wouldn't be standing here now. You would be nothing but a shadow in this city. Her body trembled. She had never heard words like that before. Words that carried both danger and promise. Her heart pounded as she slowly took his hand. It felt warm and real, unlike the cold emptiness she had known for so long. You promise? She asked, still unsure. I promise, he replied, but his eyes darted toward the horizon, scanning the ruined streets. Danger was never far in this world. But there is more you need to know. Staying here is not safe, not yet. The city, it hides things that are hungry for life. The woman's stomach twisted. She had seen shadows move in the corners of her vision, shapes that seemed to watch her even when she thought she was alone. But she nodded. She had no choice. Survival meant taking a risk, even with a stranger. Then, I'll go with you, she said, gripping his hand tightly. I'll do whatever you need. He gave a slow nod. Good. But remember, trust is not given lightly. You will need to follow my instructions. Every step, every word, could mean life or death. The sound of distant metal scraping against stone made both of them freeze. The man's head turned sharply toward the noise. They are near, he muttered. His hand tightened around hers, almost like a warning. Move quickly, stay low, do not make a sound. She swallowed hard, fear and determination battling in her chest. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt a strange mix of hope and terror. She had begged for survival, and now it was here, but it came with a price. They moved together through the empty streets, shadows among shadows. The woman kept her eyes on him, her trust fragile but growing. Every step was careful, deliberate. The ruined buildings cast long, jagged shadows, and in each one, the faintest glimmer of movement made her heart leap. Why? Why me? She asked quietly, unable to stop herself. Why save me? He paused for a moment, looking down at her. Because, sometimes, even the smallest spark can ignite a fire that changes everything. She did not understand fully, but she felt the weight of his words. The world had been cruel, leaving her broken and alone. But in this man, in his hand holding her, yes, there was a chance to survive, a chance to matter. A sudden crash echoed nearby. Both of them ducked behind a fallen wall, pressed against the cold, rough surface. Her breath came in short gasps. She glanced at him, and for a moment she saw a flicker of something almost human. Concern, maybe even fear. Stay close, he whispered. We are not safe yet, not until we reach the edge of the city. Her grip on his hand tightened. I won't leave you, she said, her voice steadier now. Not now, not ever. He looked at her, a mixture of surprise and something unreadable in his eyes. Then slowly he nodded. Good, then let us move. The night is long, and danger waits for no one. And with that, they slipped further into the shadows, two fragile figures in a broken world. The wind howled, carrying with it whispers of threats unseen. But for the first time, the woman felt a flicker of hope. She had found someone willing to stand with her, someone willing to keep her alive, at least for now. And in a world that had given her nothing but despair, that was enough. The city's ruins stretched like a graveyard under the dull gray sky. Every step the woman took sent a soft cloud of ash into the air. She glanced at the man walking beside her. He moved with a calm precision, almost unnatural, as if the broken streets were familiar to him, though to her every corner was a trap. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered, her voice trembling. I've never trusted anyone before. Not fully. The man did not look at her. His eyes scanned the shadows, always alert. Trust is not easy, he said quietly, and you will need it. More than you think. She swallowed hard. Survival had always been a lonely fight. The world had abandoned her countless times, leaving her to run, hide, and fight alone. But now, the thought of walking this ruined city with someone who might actually protect her, was both terrifying and comforting. They turned a corner, and the faint glow of fire reflected off a distant building. Smoke spiraled upward, dark against the gray sky. She shivered. What is that? They are hunting, he replied, his voice low, almost a growl. Those who remain, they want to capture anyone alive, humans or not. The woman's heart skipped. Humans or not. She had never understood fully what he meant, but now, with danger closing in, she didn't dare ask. Instead, she gripped his hand tighter. They moved faster, keeping low. Every ruined building could hide enemies. Every shadow might be a trap. She felt fear curling inside her, a cold, clawing thing that made her stomach twist. Finally, they paused behind the skeleton of a building. She looked at him, her eyes wide. I need to know something, she said. Why me? Why save me? Why trust me? The man exhaled slowly. You have something no one else has, he said. A choice. A willingness to survive, even when it seems impossible. Most would give up. Most would run. She shook her head. I've run my whole life. I've begged for survival. That's all I know. How does that make me special? He looked at her then, fully this time. His eyes seemed almost human, but there was something in them she could not name. Because running alone is easy. Choosing to stay, to face danger, to trust someone else, that is rare. That is what matters now. She closed her eyes. Every instinct in her told her to run, to disappear into the ruins, to survive alone as she always had. But another part, the part she had buried for so long, wanted to stay, to fight, to live, and maybe to belong. The wind shifted, and with it came a strange sound, a low, guttural hum, almost like a warning. He tensed, his hand squeezing hers. We have to move, he said. Now. They ran, weaving between broken walls and debris. Shadows moved in the distance, figures that didn't belong. She felt panic rise in her chest. Her legs burned, but she didn't stop. She had promised herself she would. I'd survive, no matter what. But survival was different when someone else depended on her, when she depended on someone else. Finally, they reached a narrow alley. The man stopped, pulling her behind a fallen metal frame. He crouched low, listening. She mirrored him, heart hammering in her chest. The hum had grown louder, closer, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. They are near, he whispered. Do you trust me? Her mind raced. Trust. She had begged for protection her entire life, and now it was offered on her own terms. But the stakes were higher than ever. If she chose wrong, she would die. If she chose right, she might live. I trust you, she said, voice barely audible. He nodded once, sharply. Good. Then follow me exactly. One wrong step and we will be caught. Alive or dead, it makes no difference to them. They slipped through the alley, moving silently, shadows among shadows. She noticed for the first time how different he was. His movements were precise, almost unnatural. He didn't stumble over debris or flinch at sounds, and yet there was a vulnerability too, a human fragility in his eyes when he glanced at her. Why are you like this? She asked quietly. So strong, yet so careful. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder, scanning the empty streets. I am what is left of a world that forgot mercy, he said finally. I survived because I learned to trust, carefully, and now you must do the same. She nodded, unsure if she fully understood, but the choice had been made. She would stay. She would follow him, even if it terrified her, even if the unknown threatened to swallow her whole. Another noise, closer this time. A shadow moved across a distant wall. She froze, heart hammering, and looked at him. He tilted his head slightly, then smiled faintly. Are you ready? He asked. She took a deep breath. I'm ready. Good, he said, extending his hand. Because the night is long, and the choices we make now will decide everything." With that, they vanished to the ruined streets, two fragile figures bound by fear, hope, and a single, dangerous choice: to survive together or die apart. The city waited silently, watching. And in the shadows, something unseen moved closer, curious, patient, and hungry. The ruined city lay behind them, a graveyard of broken buildings and twisted metal. Dust swirled in the cold wind, making the world look like a ghostly maze. The woman's legs ached from running, but she did not stop. Not yet. She stayed close to him, her hand gripping his like it was the only lifeline in a world that had lost all mercy. "You know," she said, her voice quiet, almost afraid it would carry too far, "I've never walked with someone like this. Not really." He glanced at her, his sharp eyes reflecting a faint light from the ashes around them. "Most never do," he said. "Most survive alone, but surviving alone does not mean living." She frowned. "Surviving alone is all I've ever known. Living, I don't know if I remember how." A silence stretched between them, heavy and tense. Then a sudden movement caught her eye, a shadow slinking across the ground near a collapsed wall. She froze. "They are watching," he said calmly, though his hand tightened around hers. "Always watching." Her heart jumped. She had expected danger, but the thought of unseen eyes following them made her skin crawl. "Who? What are they?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured for her to follow, moving like a shadow himself. "You'll understand soon enough," he said. "For now, just keep moving." Quietly. They crept through the ruins, weaving between broken walls and debris. The city felt alive in its own strange, twisted way. Shadows stretched unnaturally long. Strange noises echoed from empty buildings, metal creaking, stones shifting, whispers carried by the wind. Each sound made the woman jump, but she pressed on. She could not, too, earn back now. After what felt like hours, they reached a wide street. The firelight from a distant building flickered like a warning. He paused and looked at her. "This is dangerous," he said. "We can go around, but it will take longer. Or we can move straight through, but we risk being seen." She hesitated. Her mind screamed to avoid danger, to survive, to take the longer path. But something in his eyes, calm, confident, almost commanding, made her nod. "We go straight," she said. He gave a faint smile, then led the way. Step by careful step, they crossed the street. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward them. The woman's pulse raced. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and yet alive in a way she had not felt for years. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the ground. She stumbled, barely catching herself. The man's eyes narrowed. "Stay close. Do not look away," he ordered. From the shadows, shapes began to emerge. They were humanoid, but wrong. Their limbs were too long, movements too fast. The woman froze in terror. The creature's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, tracking every movement. "They can sense fear," he whispered almost to himself. "Control it, or it will be the end of us." Her hands shook, but she focused. She had no choice. She followed his lead, moving silently, every step calculated. The creatures shifted closer, their forms flickering in and out of the shadows like living smoke. The man suddenly stopped and pressed her against a wall. His face was close to hers, eyes fierce. "Listen to me. Do exactly as I say. One mistake, one sound, and they will find us." "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I understand." He nodded once, then signaled her forward. They moved again, crouching low, slipping between shadows. She realized something strange. The closer she stayed to him, the less she felt afraid. His presence was commanding, protective, almost magnetic. She did not fully understand it, but it worked. Hours seemed to pass in silence, broken only by distant noises, the shifting of debris, the creature's quiet movements. Finally, they reached a narrow alleyway, hidden behind the ruins of a collapsed building. "This will hold them," he said. "For now." She sank against the wall, breathing hard, heart pounding. I didn't think I could make it," she admitted. "I thought I would die out there." "You almost did," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "But you didn't. That matters." She looked at him, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Why are you helping me? You risk so much." He studied her for a long moment. "Because even the smallest spark can start a fire that changes everything," he repeated, the same words as before. But this time, they felt heavier, more meaningful. She felt it in her chest, the weight of hope, fragile but undeniable. The alley was quiet, save for the distant sounds of the city. She sat down, exhausted, and he crouched beside her. The glow of the fire reflected faintly on his face, revealing a flash of something, not human. Just for a moment, she saw a hint of strange markings on his skin, faintly glowing under the ash and dust. She blinked, and it was gone, but the thought lingered. Who or what was he really? "I have to know," she whispered. "What are you?" He looked at her, the faintest smile on his lips. "Patience, foe," he said. "All will be revealed, in time. For now, survive. That is all that matters." She nodded, unsure whether relief or frustration won over first, but she felt it. The connection, fragile but real. They were two strangers bound by danger, trust, and the unknown future ahead. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes watched them, waiting, patient, and hungry. The journey had only begun. The alley was quiet, almost too quiet. The woman's chest heaved as she tried to catch her breath. Her legs ached and her hands still trembled from the chase. Yet even in exhaustion, her mind refused to rest. Questions she had buried, for years now, pressed against her like heavy stones. The most urgent one hovered over her thoughts. Who was this man really? He knelt beside her, his dark hood falling back slightly. A faint shimmer danced across his skin where the firelight touched him. Something about it felt unnatural. She noticed it immediately, a strange pattern, almost like veins glowing faintly under his skin. She blinked, unsure if her tired eyes were playing tricks on her. What are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the shadows in the alley, as if listening to something she could not hear. Then he finally spoke, his voice low and careful. "I am not fully human," he said. The words struck her like a cold wind. Her mind struggled to process them. "Not human? Then what are you?" He hesitated. "I am a hybrid, part human, part something else, something the world nearly forgot." Her eyes widened. "A hybrid? You mean, like, alien?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. My kind has survived in the shadows, watching, learning, protecting. But we do not trust easily. Humans. They fear us. They attack us." Her heart raced. She had seen signs, his speed, his strange strength, the way shadows seemed to bend around him. But she had never imagined this. Part of her wanted to recoil, to run again, to survive alone. Yet another part, the part that had already chosen to trust him, held her in place. "Then, why save me?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why not leave me to die like everyone else?" He looked at her, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Because you are different," he said. "You have the courage to survive. And more than that, you have the willingness to trust, even when it is dangerous." She shook her head. "I've survived by running. That's all I've ever done. I don't know about courage." "Courage," he said slowly, "is not just about fighting or surviving. It is about choosing to stand even when fear surrounds you, choosing to trust even when everything tells you not to." She swallowed hard. His words hit her deeper than she expected. For years, she had believed that survival alone was all that mattered. But now, maybe survival with someone else, someone who could guide her, mattered more. Suddenly, a noise made them both freeze. A low, metallic scraping echoed through the empty streets, followed by a distant growl. The creatures were still near, hunting, patient, waiting for them to slip. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "We must move. Follow me, exactly as I say." They slipped from the alley into a narrower path, hidden between crumbling buildings. She noticed his movements were almost too precise, too calculated, yet effortless. And then she saw it again, the faint glow beneath his skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. "You're not like anyone I've ever seen," she whispered, awe and fear mixing in her voice. "I am a survivor," he replied, his tone calm but heavy with unspoken truths. "And now, you are one too. But the truth, the real danger, is not them." He glanced toward the horizon, where shadows moved in impossible ways. "It is the world itself. It has changed, and soon, it will demand more from us than you can imagine." Her stomach twisted. She had survived storms, hunger, fear. But this revelation, this hybrid, this unknown danger, felt different. It was bigger, heavier. Her mind raced with questions she did not dare ask aloud. Could she trust him fully? Could she survive the world he hinted at? He noticed her fear. "Do not be afraid," he said softly. "Fear is natural, but it cannot control us. Not now." She nodded, gripping his hand. I want to trust you. I have to." He studied her for a moment, then gave a faint, almost human smile. "Good. Because the choice you made to stay, it matters more than you realize. The future, your future, depends on it." A sudden rumble shook the ground. Dust fell from the broken buildings above the bay. Creatures were closing in again, their glowing eyes cutting through the darkness like knives. He grabbed her hand and pulled her forward, moving with unmatched speed and precision. As they ran, she noticed something else. The glow beneath his skin seemed to respond to their movements, pulsing brighter as danger approached. It was as if the life inside him, the hybrid part, was warning them, guiding them. She could barely keep up, her lungs burning, but she did not let go. She trusted him completely now, even though every instinct screamed caution. Finally, they reached a small, hidden alcove behind a collapsed wall. He pulled her inside, crouching beside her, his chest heaving but his eyes alert. "Rest for a moment," he said. "But know this, the danger is not gone, and soon, the secret I carry will shape the path you have chosen." Her mind whirled. She had survived the city, the creatures, and the hunt. But this secret, the revelation that he was a hybrid, part alien, part human, was heavier than any shadow or predator. It changed everything. She looked at him, fear and determination mingling in her gaze. I don't care what you are," she said. "I'm staying. I trust you." He met her eyes, and for the first time his expression softened completely. "Then we begin," he said. "Not as strangers, but as something stronger. Something the world has almost forgotten. And together, we will survive." The city remained silent around them, watching, waiting. But in the darkness, a new tension pulsed, a secret revealed, a bond forged, and a danger yet to come. The journey was far from over. The ruins of the city stretched around them like silent witnesses. Every building was a broken skeleton, every street a reminder of what had been lost. The woman sat on a cracked piece of concrete, her arms wrapped around her knees. Exhaustion weighed on her, but the man beside her did not sit. He scanned the horizon with sharp, unblinking eyes. "You can rest," he said finally, his voice softer than before. "But we cannot stay long. Danger waits." She looked at him, noticing the faint glow beneath his skin pulsing steadily in the dim light. For the first time she felt a strange comfort in it, like a beacon in the darkness. I think I understand now," she said slowly. "You're not just surviving for yourself, are you?" He tilted his head, curious. "What do you mean?" "You help me, protect me, guide me," she said, searching for the right words. "Not because you have to, but because you choose to. You could leave me, but you didn't. That matters." For a moment, his expression softened, almost human. "It does," he said quietly. "Choice is rare in this world. Most people, even my kind, simply survive. Few choose to care." She swallowed, realizing how much trust she had already placed in him. Only hours ago, she had been running alone, terrified of everyone and everything. Now here she was, sitting beside someone whose presence made her feel safe, almost whole. The wind shifted, carrying with it a distant sound. A low rumble, faint but unmistakable. She stiffened. "They're still out there, aren't they?" "Yes," he said calmly. "Always. But we move together, you and I. That is our strength." She hesitated. I want to trust you completely. I think I already do. But it's scary. The world, the creatures, you, all of it." He looked at her, eyes sharp but not threatening. "Fear is natural. It tells us we are alive. But trust is stronger. It binds us. Alone, we might survive. Together, we live." She looked down at their hands, still clasped tightly. The warmth of his hand seemed to chase away the chill of the ruins. Her chest tightened. "Then, I trust you, fully, no matter what comes next." He studied her, something unreadable in his gaze. Then he nodded. "Good, that is all that matters. The bond we form now, it will carry us through what is coming, stronger than fear, stronger than the shadows." Suddenly, a sharp sound shattered the moment, a piece of metal clattering against stone somewhere nearby. Both of them froze. The creatures were closer now, their glowing eyes cutting through the darkness like knives. The woman's heart pounded in her chest. "Stay close," he whispered, "and remember, every step, every breath, every heartbeat counts." They moved as one, shadows slipping through shadows. She noticed how he seemed to know exactly where to step, how to move, how to avoid detection. His guidance was precise, almost instinctive, yet he slowed for her, letting her keep up. "You don't have to be afraid," he said quietly as they crouched behind a ruined wall. "Not while I am here, not while we are together." Her throat tightened. "I know," she whispered. It's strange. I've never felt connected to anyone, not like this." He glanced at her, his eyes softening just slightly. "Connection is a choice," he said, "and you chose it. That is why you survived this long. That is why you are still here." The rumble of distant movement reminded them both that the danger was real, that survival was never guaranteed. Yet, in that moment, a fragile warmth bloomed in her chest, a flicker of hope, of trust, of belonging. Hours passed like minutes as they moved cautiously through the ruins. They shared no words, only glances and small gestures. She began to notice the subtle ways he protected her, how he led her away from unstable walls, how he paused to listen for threats before stepping forward, how he never left her behind. And in return, she began to act without thinking, mirroring him, anticipating danger, learning the rhythm of his movements. The bond between them deepened, not with promises or declarations, but with survival, with trust, with silent understanding. Finally, they reached a small clearing, hidden among toppled buildings. He gestured for her to sit, and she sank down, exhausted but alive. For a long moment, they simply rested, breathing in the cold night air. "You're stronger than you think," he said softly. "Not because of what you can fight, but because of what you chose. To trust, to stay, to survive with me." She looked at him, tears glinting in her eyes. "I never thought I could feel this way again. Safe, not alone, like I matter." He gave a faint smile, almost human. "You do matter," he said, "more than you know. And together, we will face what comes next." The night was quiet, but the shadows were never far. Somewhere beyond the ruins, creatures waited. The world remained dangerous, unpredictable, and hungry. But for the first time, she felt something she had never felt before. Hope. And in the midst of destruction, two souls, one human, one hybrid, had formed a bond stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness, stronger than the ruined world around them. The journey ahead would test them, push them to their limits, and demand everything, but whatever came, they would face it together. The night air was thick and heavy, carrying the scent of smoke and ash. The woman crouched behind a pile of rubble, her chest heaving, every nerve on edge. Beside her, the man moved like a shadow, silent, alert, a predator in the ruins. Their bond had grown, their trust solidified. But the world was unforgiving, and danger never rested. A low, guttural growl echoed through the broken streets. She froze, heart hammering. "They're close," she whispered. "They never sleep," he said, his voice calm but tense. "And they are fast. We need to move, now." He led the way, weaving through collapsed walls and shattered buildings. The woman followed, keeping low, mimicking his precise movements. Every step was calculated, every sound measured. But even with his guidance, fear gnawed at her. The creatures hunting them were unlike anything she had ever seen. Humanoid, yet distorted, with limbs that bent in unnatural ways and eyes that glowed in the dark. A sudden crash behind them made her spin. Two creatures had appeared, faster than her eyes could track. One lunged at them, claws outstretched. The man reacted instantly, moving with speed that was almost inhuman. He struck the creature with a force that sent it flying into the rubble. The woman gasped. How are you so strong?" He did not answer. "Keep moving," he snapped, urgency in his voice. "No time to wonder. They are many, and they do not hesitate." They ran, shadows among shadows, the sounds of pursuit echoing in the distance. She stumbled over debris, almost falling, but his hand shot out, gripping hers firmly. "Don't stop," he said, his eyes scanning the ruins ahead. "We are not safe until we reach the edge." Her lungs burned, but she did not let go. Together they moved through narrow alleys, slipping past unstable walls and jagged metal. Every shadow seemed alive, every corner a potential trap. The creatures were relentless, hunting not just their bodies, but the very spark of life they carried. Finally, they reached an open square, broken and silent except for the faint glow of distant fires. The man paused, crouched low, and scanned the area. "We can hide here," he said, "but they will find us if we linger. Prepare yourself." Before she could ask, more shapes emerged from the darkness. They were faster, stronger, and more numerous than before. The woman's stomach twisted. Panic surged, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had trusted him, and now she had to act. "Stay behind me," he said, positioning himself between her and the threat. "Do not move unless I tell you." She nodded, fear coiling tight in her chest. He moved with terrifying precision, striking creatures with blows that seemed effortless, dodging attacks that would have killed any human. But each strike drained him. She noticed his breath growing heavier, his movements slightly slower, but he did not falter. One creature lunged from the shadows faster than she could track. It reached for her, claws outstretched. Instinct took over. She kicked out, catching it off balance. It stumbled, giving him the opening he needed. With a swift, fluid motion, he struck it down. "Good," he said, though his voice held strain. "Keep focused. We are not finished." Another growl sounded, closer this time. More creatures appeared, their eyes glowing like embers in the night. The man's movements became a blur, striking, dodging, protecting her. But she saw the toll it took, the subtle tremor in his hands, the way his breath came in sharp bursts. "I have to help," she said, determination rising. "I can fight too." He looked at her, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I'm not leaving you, not now." He nodded once, sharply, and together they fought. She moved as he had taught her, precise and careful. Every strike counted. Every movement mattered. They were a unit now, a bond forged in fear, trust, and survival. The creatures hesitated, sensing their unity. The man's hybrid strength combined with her growing skill made them formidable, together, almost unstoppable. But the numbers were overwhelming. Another surge of creatures rushed toward them, forcing the man to shield her, taking blows that would have crushed a normal human. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing her hand. "We need to reach the edge. Now!" They sprinted, weaving through the ruins, dodging debris and attacks. The woman's muscles screamed, but adrenaline carried her forward. She glanced at him. His face was tense, eyes focused, but there was no fear, only determination. Finally, they reached a crumbling wall that marked the edge of the city. Beyond it lay open land, safer terrain, at least for now. The creatures did not follow beyond the wall. They seemed to hesitate, confined to the ruins they knew. The man dropped to one knee, gasping for breath. The woman pressed herself against him, trembling. You're hurt," she said, concern lacing her voice. "I will survive," he said, voice tight but steady. "But you did well. You kept up. You fought. You trusted. That is why we are alive." She looked at him, awe and fear mingling. "I couldn't have done it alone." And she admitted. "No," he said softly. "Alone. You would not have survived. Together. We have a chance." They stayed there for a moment, catching their breath, the sounds of the city behind them. The threat had passed for now, but both knew it was only temporary. The world was still hunting, still dangerous, and the creatures would return. Yet in that moment, something had changed. The bond between them had grown stronger, tempered in fire and fear, solidified in trust and shared survival. They had faced death together and survived. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, the woman felt a spark of hope, a belief that together they could face whatever the world sent next. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes watched, patient and hungry, waiting for the next move. The first light of dawn crept slowly over the horizon, casting pale gold across the ruined land. The city behind them lay silent, a graveyard of broken walls and shattered memories. For the first time in days, the woman allowed herself to breathe fully, feeling the cold wind against her face and the warmth of his hand in hers. They had survived. Against impossible odds, through hunger, fear, and creatures that hunted without mercy, they had survived. But survival alone no longer felt like enough. Something deeper had formed between them, a bond forged in shadows, danger, and trust. She glanced at him. The glow beneath his skin, faint in the moonlight last night, had dimmed but still pulsed with life, part human, part something else, and entirely devoted to keeping her alive. I can't believe we made it," she said softly, her voice almost trembling. "I thought I would never see the sunrise again." He studied the horizon, his expression unreadable. "Survival is only the beginning," he said. "Living, truly living, is what comes next." And that requires more than just fighting. She frowned. More? What more? He looked at her, his eyes softening. Trust, hope, the courage to build, even when everything around us is broken. We've survived the night, but the world, it demands more than survival. It demands creation, continuation, a spark of life that cannot be destroyed. Her heart skipped. She understood. She had begged him once to let her stay, to let her live. And now, she realized that living meant more than existing. It meant shaping the future. She had a role in it, a dangerous, uncertain, and beautiful role. You mean children? She whispered, the memory of her plea echoing in her mind. The promise I made, bearing your offspring? He nodded. Yes, that promise. It is not just about survival. It is about hope, the future, a new life, a bridge between our kind and yours, a chance to rebuild what was lost. She stared at him, awe and fear mingling. The weight of it pressed on her chest. This was no longer about hiding or surviving. It was about shaping something bigger than themselves, a legacy. You trust me, Piton, with this? She asked quietly. I do, he said simply. And I trust you. Together, we can face anything. For a long moment, they stood in silence, looking at the rising sun. The city was behind them, but the land ahead stretched wide and empty, full of danger and possibility. The creatures they had fought would return, other threats would emerge, but for the first time, fear was tempered by hope. Where do we go now? She asked, her voice trembling, but not with fear, more with anticipation. He smiled faintly, something almost human in the curve of his lips. Forward, always forward. We find a safe place, a home, a place where life can grow, and then we survive differently. Together. She nodded. For the first time, she did not feel alone. The bond between them, forged in fire and danger, had created something unbreakable. He was not just a survivor anymore. She was part of something greater, something that could endure beyond the shadows. As they walked, hand in hand, the wind carried whispers from the ruins behind them. Shadows shifted, but they no longer feared them. They had learned to move with purpose, with unity, with trust. The creatures might follow, the world might challenge them, but they would face it together. Hours passed and they reached the edge of the ruined land. Beyond it stretched forests, rivers, and valleys untouched by the chaos of the city. Life waited there, safe life, possibility. The woman paused, looking at the horizon. Do you think we can really do it? He looked at her, his eyes glowing faintly in the morning light. We have no choice but to try, he said. But I believe we can. Together we are stronger than fear, stronger than the world's shadows, stronger than anything that hunts us. She smiled faintly, a mix of hope and determination. Then, let's do it. Let's build a future, one step at a time. He nodded, one step at a time, and always together. For the first time, she felt a lightness in her chest, a flicker of joy she had not known in years. They were no longer running from the past. They were walking toward a future, uncertain, dangerous, and beautiful. And for the first time, she believed that the future could be theirs. As they disappeared into the forested horizon, the ruins behind them seemed to fade, swallowed by the light of the new day. The shadows lingered, watching, patient and hungry, but they no longer mattered. The world was broken, but it was alive, and so were they. The bond they had formed, the trust they had earned, and the promise of new life carried them forward. The journey had been perilous, but the destination, the future, was theirs to shape. And somewhere in the distance, unseen eyes watched. But this time, they were not hunters. They were witnesses. Witnesses to a spark of hope, a new beginning, and a bond that could survive even the darkest world. Together they would rebuild, one life, one step, one hope at a time.